guys, once again, welcome to the Raj Core podcast. And this week I've got a very, very special guest. Really, really excited about this one because I like to broaden my horizons. As you all know, I'm from the Bhangra industry, but today we've got someone who's associated probably with Bhangra, but in some way, in some way or another. But he's far, far, far bigger than reaches of. If I mention some of the artists he's worked with, you'll be gobsmacked. So, Del. Mr. Tabla Jedi, how would you like to? How would you like yourself addressed?
Oh well, call me Dal. Tabla Jedi is my. It's like my social media kind of platform.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
I am. Yes, I am. I am a Star Wars fan. Yeah,
we're going to talk about
it too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Star Wars later as well, right?
Okay, cool.
In the podcast because I love Star Wars. Yeah. Well, I used to love Star Wars, but it's really taken a direction which I'm like, it's sort of
yeah. No, I'm more kind of the earlier versions of it. The starts,
exactly. Yeah. I don't mind some of the. Sorry, this is going off in Star Wars tangent already. I don't mind some of the cartoons, but like some of the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars and stuff. I love all that. But the films and the new series, I've just lost interest. Anyway,
yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
But anyway, over to yourself. So, tell me a bit about your background and where you're from.
I'm from Leeds originally. I live in Birmingham now, but Birmingham's my home from home. So I've been in Birmingham for about 25 years now. Okay. But my background's actually in Indian classical music. And that's where I started my practice. So you were saying earlier about mastering an art. For me, it's more kind of just being a good learner, and a good student. So that's what I've tried to kind of project my work in. And like you said as well, I've been really fortunate to work with some well-known musicians and singers, songwriters, a way kind of a real paradox to my Indian classical music background and my learning in that genre. But yeah, it's been I've got my fingers in lots of pies. I do, as musicians, I think we have to be multidimensional. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just juggling, and surviving by the grace and love from people, really. So yeah, but I don't complain about it. I love what I do. I feel that it's a blessing to be able to do something that gives you and others, a lot of joy. So I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm really, really, I feel really humbled in the position I'm in, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. So where about Leeds were you from originally?
So I grew up in an area where my grandparents were in Chapeltown. So my learning started in Leeds at the local Gurdwara, the local Sikh temple. Okay. And I think for many, many youngsters like me at that time, and even today, I was in Coventry yesterday doing a class, and I was really, really encouraged to see the youngsters that are learning classical music, tabla, harmonium, even the stringed instruments now, and it's in a healthy place. And so, that's where I started learning a long time ago. And my grandfather used to play the harmonium, and he used to sing. His name was Sardar Bhuta Singh Ratan, and he was basically the driving force behind me going to learn at the temple. And then that's where my journey started. But then you're very young. I was only 4 or 5 years old, so It was just something that I'd go to class Tuesday, Thursday. I'd play on a Saturday and Sunday, so I had a real regular routine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I did that for many, many years, so until I was in my late teens. And then I went to the Leeds College of Music, and I studied there. I studied Indian classical music. I worked on composition work, working in ensembles, kind of cross-genre work. Also a little bit of, collaborative, really. So anyway, I was there for a couple of years, and then I moved to Birmingham. And when I came to Birmingham, just before I came to Birmingham, I met my teacher, my guru, my Guruji. His name is Shri Sukhwinder Singh Pinky Ji, and he's known worldwide. And I was really fortunate to become his student. So, and I'm still his student. I was with him a couple of weeks ago, and still learning. The journey continues for me.
So,
yeah.
was your grandfather doing a kirtan? Was it?
He would, yeah, he would. He played the harmonium like fluently. He was. Because I mean, at that time, my grandfather was before he came to Leeds, arrived in Leeds. He was in East Africa, he was in Tanzania, and he worked for the British Rail in Dar es Salaam. So he was a really kind of well-mannered, well-dressed, God-fearing man, very polite, very kind, and a very humble man. And he loved to play the harmonium and sing the hymns, sing Gurbani Sangeet. And he wanted to learn Indian classical music, but because he had a very big family, and in those times, music wasn't taken on as a profession, it was just something you did as a hobby. He continued it alongside his work in the railway with British Rail. And then he continued it when he arrived in the UK, when he worked as an electrician at the local hospital in Leeds.
Gosh.
So he would support the jate or the jate that would come from outside and sit with them and accompany them on the harmonium, and then take me to class. He'd do a 12-hour shift and do that for me. So huge sacrifice. I'm so grateful to him. God rest his soul. He was a really he just wanted me to learn it, and I think it was something that he never got the opportunity to do. And he pushed me in it, and I was really fortunate. So yeah, I'd love to, it was a really proud moment for him when I would, accompany him and give him sangat on the tabla when he would sing at the temple. It was a really beautiful moment for him, for me, and for my family as well. It's a real blessing, to be honest.
Absolutely. So I just want to get a grasp of your, just get an insight into your home life. So did you ever practice with your granddad at home? Was that a common thing, or?
I lived with my grandfather. I mean, my grandfather practically brought me up. I was treated like a prince by them. My grandparents, and with love, we used to call him Papaji as well. And he had a beautiful voice. I've got recordings of his. He sang on All India Radio, on East Africa Radio, BBC Radio Leeds. He's been in documentaries. All he did was devote his life to his family and to Seva. That's all he did. So I can't be more prouder to be a grandson of such a beautiful human being, to be honest. And so yeah, he brought me up and I lived with him, and we would practice, and he would say, Chal baithiye, let's sit down, and our rag keraya, our kedi talia, what rag is this, what tal is it? And he would be excited that I was on that path. And in my house, you asked me what was my environment like. My environment was two things. Either there would be Gurbani Sangeet on, so Kirtan, the scriptures that I read, or there would be the golden era of Bollywood cinema, those songs. Nice. So I've got a lot of records, I've got a lot of vinyl from that era. My father was really into the Indian films and into the industry. Really loved it, and so I grew up around that. I never really grew up around Bhangra or folk music, to be very honest with you. Or there would be Indian classical music. So my ears, what I grew up around, was mainly around those sounds, and then very later on in my life, especially when I came to Birmingham, that's when I really heard Bhangra.
This is the hub of Bhangra. Birmingham was.
Well, that's when I really felt it, and what was brilliant, what's been brilliant is I've got such good friends in that industry as well. Even though we don't work together, but I have the utmost respect for the work and how they've established Bhangra to be a mainstream, genre in British music now. So, I mean, just last week we had, Diljit Dosanjh here in Birmingham.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, I teach in schools, I teach in primary, secondary schools. And I think it's really uplifting for our South Asian kids to feel proud. You know why? Because when I'm in schools, I always found that the white kids were really proud that they're learning to play the cello or the baritone or the saxophone or the flute. When our kids were asked, they would never ever put their hands up. They actually felt embarrassed or felt shy or just didn't want anybody to know that, I go to the temple, I go and learn the tabla or the harmonium, or I sing there, or, anything like that. It just wasn't on their radar. So now I feel when, I mean, for me, Indian classical music's never been out of fashion, but things come in and out of fashion, and it's just been constant. So I love sharing that kind of journey of mine and learning about how the youth, because it keeps me connected to what's happening in popular culture today, even though I am a musician who doesn't work in that field, I just listen and I'll keep my ears and eyes open all the time.
So you're a polite-mannered guy from Leeds. You came to Birmingham with the riff-raff here.
Yeah, not just Bhangra music, but reggae music.
I love reggae music as well. Yeah,
I mean, I've been lucky to work with members of Steel Pulse, Musical Youth. Dennis Seaton's a good friend of mine. We work together. We've done some school educational projects as well. So Birmingham's really rich. Raj, for me, I come from the north. I come from Leeds, and I listen to a lot of northern bands. I was lucky to work with a lot of northern musicians who are well known. Like Ian Brown or Richard Ashcroft. They were big, well known singers, songwriters, and but I found that as a real crossover of a meeting of minds, really. So I think that's what's kept my work kind of really fresh. Because I always like to delve into different things, man. I don't like to be boxed as a double up player, or he just plays Indian classical music, or he just plays this, I work with a band called Bollywood Strings. We play I've just come back from Italy, we're doing destination weddings. And it's a quartet, it's like Bridgerton meets Bollywood, it's that kind of thing. But, it works, it works for the clientele, it works for the audiences, they want that now. Whereas there was that era where live Bhangra bands would be invited to come and, do a full band. Now we have the DJ, charging an arm and a leg for them to come and play. Anyway, so times have changed now. I think you've got to evolve with that.
Yeah. What I find fascinating about yourself, Dal, straight away, you've just passingly said all these names like Richard Ashcroft. That's a massive, like for someone like me, and probably a lot of the audience here, for you to work with big artists like that.
For me too, bro.
Yeah, for me too. You've just said it like passingly. And the other guy who said stuff like this was DJ Swami, Diamond Dougal.
I do, yes.
Yeah, he's worked some of the biggest artists in the world, and he says it. He says it like, "Oh yeah, I've worked with him. Yeah, I play guitar. I went and tour with him."
Yeah. Well, I'm working with Simon Dougal on a project.
Oh yeah, right, nice.
Called on Partition of the Heart, and Simon Dougal was kind of instrumental behind Shania Twain's album.
Yeah, exactly.
So and they've done some big work. They did a lot of work with launching Apache Indians albums and. So, very, very kind of experienced, musicians and producers, but you're right, Raj, because I had that same, because, I'm fans of these musicians. Like, for example, learning from my Guruji. Yeah, I mean, learning from my Guruji, I was his fan before I became his student.
Yeah.
And I'm still his biggest fan. I still tell them, I'm still your biggest fan. But even with bands like Ian Brown, I'm being friendly with Ian and having a friendship and a love and a bond. I never ever take for granted that who he is. He was the start of a movement in Manchester of the bands that came afterwards, like Oasis. And then you go on tour with Noel Gallagher. I've been lucky to be able to go on tour with him. I worked on 2 albums of Paul Weller's. And these are really well-known names in the British music industry. So they're kind of luthiers of that industry. So it was a real shock for me as well, because I was stepping into a world that was so much bigger than mine, And I was just a learner. I was youngest, probably the youngest lad in the band, but they were so good to me. You know, they were really, really, and I think they were good to me because they knew how much I loved my tabla, my instrument. I loved what I did, you know, and I was really, really glad to be able to do something with it because I didn't want to do anything else. You know, I didn't want to. I've tried jobs and I couldn't hold anything down. You know, I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and that was it. You know, so it just happened. So I just went and I made connections. You know, a band would see me play somewhere, or I'd support. One of my friends, Aziz Ibrahim, he's one of the best guitarists in the country. You know, he's one of the first Asian musicians to play in, you know, these big bands. He opened a lot of doors for me. So I've worked with prog rock bands, which have huge followings. You'll never ever hear about them on radio. A band like Marillion, you know, they're massive. They're all, you know, they're worldwide. And I'd never heard of them, you know, before I went on tour with them. Obviously, with Richard Ashcroft, you've heard of their music. Yeah. You know, Ian Brown, you know, Paul Weller. I'm a huge fan of Paul Weller's. And, you know, the story, I can tell you right, when I did a recording with Paul Weller, you know, when he asked me how much what was my fee, you know, I couldn't tell him to say a figure. I just said to him, I said, look, I owe you. I'm playing on your album. You know, that's a huge privilege for me. And anyway, so, you know, I would consider them as being not just people I work with, but as good friends as well in the industry.
That's absolutely amazing. It's just I still can't believe you're just saying passively like, oh yeah, I worked with this and that. But to me, it's like I'm like gobsmacked, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky. Yeah, very lucky. Right?
But you know what's like sort of, I know artists are doing it now, they're making collabs, but people like yourself need to be highlighted, Dale, because you've been doing this probably, as you said, 25 years with some big artists, and we as British Asians, we need to. We've done this. Like I was speaking to Omar the other day. She's worked with some of, you know, Mangal Singh's daughter.
Yes.
She's worked with some of the biggest hip hop artists.
Yeah,
and no one knows about it.
Yeah.
It's not right. I think we should push ourselves, especially people like yourself. So I'm so glad that you're here talking to me, telling me about your experiences, telling me because it's
I mean, it's not been all rosy though, Raj. You know, I mean, the thing is with people. Look, I mean, you know, when I'm not a front man, even though I do sing a little bit, or I might play other instruments and percussion instruments. You know, as a tabla player, I was more kind of an accompanist, you know, in my line of work. But, you know, doing it, you know, when you don't get the call, when you don't get people calling you, that's when you realize your worth. You know, when COVID happened, you know, a lot of musicians like myself, you know, left the profession, you know, because they couldn't sustain their lives, you know, in music. So it's a very, very difficult kind of business to be in, you know, but for me, what I find in this business for me is that if you're going into it for the fame, then don't do it, you know, because you're going to be really disappointed. The traffic is horrendous. There's a lot going on. But if you want to do it so you're unique and you've got something good that you want to share and you believe in that, then I would 100% say give it a shot, you know. And that's what sometimes I felt like, you know, man, you know, it's really difficult. You know, you have real highs and lows, but I focus now more on the highs because I just want to focus on getting more. What's the word? Is getting my playing out to as many people as I can in whichever avenue. You know, so talking to you, you know, for people that don't know my work, like you said about Amar's work. I mean, there's lots of musicians that are phenomenal players, you know. They don't get the exposure, you know. And I'm sorry, you know, I don't think streaming works for ground root bands. You know, it doesn't make them any money, to be quite honest.
No. Hi guys, this is Raj Kaul. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the rest of my music, if you could go and check me out on Spotify, on Apple Music, and add my songs to your playlists if you like them. Thank you.
याद तेरी जद आउंदी सोहणीए सां साडे रुक जांदे ने
It doesn't.
So, I've had a look at this, and being in the business, I just think, you've got to be really you've got to be like water. You've got to take shape in anything that you're put into. And I think that's a sign of true musicianship. So like if I'm working on so many different projects, every day is different for me, and the places I go to. And I feel I'm very privileged to be able to do that. So I get to share, my work and learn from youngsters and youth at schools, at the conservatoire, at secondary schools, about what are their thoughts about the music industry. When you ask everybody who listens to music for free, everybody's hand goes up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how are bands supposed to make money? How are bands supposed to sustain their living? So that's a story that, I do look into, and I think because I've been through that experience, I do like to touch on it because it's not spoken about a lot either.
No, I think these days, like, so what I'm finding as a musician, you have to be a content creator as well in this day and age. Otherwise,
massively.
Yeah. So me and Ruby, but you've talked to Ruby, my wife. We've had to do so much different types of content, and she's handling a lot of it. Even like gimmicky stuff, you have to do. You have to do content creation.
I think
just to get
social media. I think you're right, Raj. I think social media is a full-time job now. It takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you always don't get the bounce back you're hoping for. Yeah. So, you're kind of putting it out into the stratosphere, but you're just hopeful. Then you're kind of like, bothering and fingers crossed, But, I think this is the thing. Social media is a tool, to do it, like how we connected. And it's a really powerful tool, a really useful tool. And I think, a lot of people kind of criticize it, and you can quite easily do that. But I think if you're a musician and you're a self-sustaining musician, so you don't have management, you don't have, a big tour booked, you know what I mean? And, what else are you going to do? You're going to create content. You're going to then put it out and be hopeful somebody sees it, So, I mean, a lot of the top players and musicians and big names now, that's how they were discovered.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, okay, let's get back into the technical side. I don't want to keep you too long. Otherwise, I can talk for hours, probably like yourself now.
Me too, man.
For 3 hours, yeah. I won't keep you that long. So, in terms of your tabla, I want to go back into the technical side. So, when you were 4, what were you taught at that moment, if you can remember?
I can remember, and that's another thing that music really enhances your memory. You remember things. I mean, you might forget what you had for roti yesterday, but you'll remember a composition or a tihai or a tukra or a composition. So, my first teacher at the temple, Gyani Gurbaksh Singh Ji, who is still based in Leeds, he said to me, "Putter, assi classical music gauna te bajana ya." Main kiha mainu ta pata nahi, I don't know what that is. Then he taught me teen tal, the 16-beat cycle. Yeah. But he didn't show me how to play it. He showed me how to speak it first, and he kept the tal for it. And I was just watching him, and he's just going da, din, da, da, din, da, da, din, da, trika, din, da. And I'm looking at him going, what is he doing with his hands? What are these waves and these claps and all these pointers? Later on, I learned, what that whole system, how sophisticated our system is, But they were the first things was to, first of all, is try and speak the pattern. Yeah. And Geniji's emphasis was very much on that. Then he started teaching me small tihais, talking to me about this composition is going to lift from here. And then, it was we were playing and accompanying him. And the more we did that, the more comfortable and confident we got with the instrument. But at that time, we weren't really delving seriously into Indian classical music, We were just skimming the surface with that. And later on, when I met my Guruji, Shri Sukhwinder Singh Ji, that's when it went to another level completely. Because if people who know tabla players or musicians will know of him, and and he's one of the very few Punjabi Sikh musicians to have accompanied and played with people like Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, all the top players, all the kind of top classical musicians, you know. So yeah, so when I came under his tutelage, that's when it really pushed on to another level, you know. And he was really he would emphasize to keep the time, keep the tal, speak the compositions. He would never let me write things down, hardly. There was never time, you know. Can you imagine writing a long composition, you know? You'll be there till next year, you know. You know, how do I finish this off? So our music, even though it's notational, it's more orally spoken and shared.
Yes.
Via melody and tal, so melody and rhythm.
That's really interesting.
And that's what, you know, and also being a tabla player and a student of it, you know, when you accompany, you get to learn about the other instruments you're working with, like sitar, santoor, sarod, sarangi, you know, bansuri, you know, israj, taush, all of these instruments, even other percussion instruments like the pakawaj, the madang, the dholak, the tol, all of these instruments, man. So I thought to myself, you know, I just want to continue this learning of tabla and delving more and more into it. So I'm really into compositional work, you know. I love reciting compositions, and then I love, you know, obviously playing them. You know, I share as much as I can, you know, with students, but also at the same time try and learn as much as I can from Guruji as well. You know, whenever they bless me their time.
That's pretty amazing. I can relate with, especially what you're telling about the tabla, because percussion has always been my weakness, because I've never been a percussionist. So I've always, even the classical stuff I've studied, is sargams and alaps and bandish and stuff like that. But I've always struggled with the percussion side of it, the teen tal and whatever, garwa or whatever. So recently I've been trying to emphasize that, and I've been practicing with my hands. And Kali and that's what, so it's really interesting that you're mentioning how you were taught.
They're the bases of it, Raj, actually, you know. I mean, for example, it's such an amazing system. And I think no matter what instrument you play, or if you're a vocalist, you know, tal is really important. You're going to need rhythm.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's key. And there's a lot of exercises that, you know, I share with students that really tighten their time, even if they're playing another instrument. It doesn't matter. So that's really important. And also our cycles in Indian classical music and our tempos, they're much wider. So, you know, we have really 5 different layers, tempos, you know. We have Ati Vilambit, which is really slow. You're talking like 25, 30 BPM. You know, then you've got Vilambit, which is about 40, 45.
Oh, you know the 3.
Yeah, then you've got Madhya layer, you know. Then you've got Drut, then you have Drut, then you have Ati Drut as well. So there's Panj learning, you know, of this whole system.
I didn't know the last 2. You know, on the other side, I knew about Vilambit and the middle one and the last. I can't remember the names now.
Yeah. So there's different layers, but there's not just layers. There's also chands that are in it. So like there's like you know, Jhulna di Chandya, ya Satda ho gaya, ya 6. You know, Ardi Chandya, you know, and if you look at it, even in a lot of people who listen to Gurbani Sangeet, a lot of our Gurbani is written in chands as well. It's all written in rag. Anyway, there are, you know, I think it's, you know, 31 rag and 108 tals, chands in the holy Granth, you know. So it's surrounded by melody and tal, you know. So, but I think rhythm is really key, man, for it, you know. And I think drummers, they're probably the hardest working members in the band, you know. Probably they don't get the accolade like the singer, the front man gets, or the guitarist might get, you know, in a band. But they're real pillars in a band, you know.
Absolutely,
and they keep the. I think if you've got a good drummer, you've got a great band. You know, I think that reflects a lot. So for me, I just love the system of Indian classical music, and also collaborating with dance. So even Kathak, you know, is closely related to that. It's really tal based. So I really get off on that, man. I love it. Yeah.
There was like you mentioned Chand. I can't remember now. So I did this probably a year or two, maybe 2-3 years ago. Chand, and it was, what's it called? Mirkhand. Mirkhand,
Oh,
I think it's called.
Yeah, there's a Khand. There's a Khand Jati Chand.
So what you do with the chand, you play the beat as you're doing with your hands, but then you have a sargam to it, like a palta with it, and then you mix it up, and it gets really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll give you an example. So if I'm keeping tal in teen tal, which is 4, 16 beat cycle, sola matra d'Italia. So if I start from the kali, from din na tika din na, 1 2 3 4 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 da din da din da. Now I'm gonna play in 7/4. That's the movement. ਹੁਣ ਆ ਛੰਦ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ then na then ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਆ so it'll go tak da kit tak kit da 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 kit da na kit tak da di na ka di na kit ta kit dum kit ta de trag da tak ta kit da da na da kit ta na kit tak da di na ka di na kit ta kit dum kit ta de trag da trag da tak ta kit da da na da kit ta na kit tak da di na ka di na kit ta kit dum kit ta de trag da then ਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਆਪ ਦੇਖੋ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬੋਲ ਰਿਹਾ I'm speaking it, keeping the tal, and it's over 7/4 ਉਹ ਛੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਟੁੱਟਿਆ and everything is repeated 3 times as well over the tal, you know, so there your markers there. ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਤਾਲੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਖਾਲੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, you know, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਗਈ, you know, that's what happens. ਇਹ ਇੰਨਾ ਡੈਲੀਕੇਟ ਕੰਮ ਆ, ਇੰਨਾ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹਵਾ ਦਾ ਰੁੱਖ ਆ, it just the way ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਹਲਕਾ ਏਦਾਂ ਗਿਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਗਈ. That's how delicate it is. Or ਇਹਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ that's what you have to really put your practice into it. So ਏਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਜੀ ਮੈਂ I've practiced 3 hours. You know, my Guruji would say to me, what did you practice in that 3 hours? Did you think about what you practiced? You know, I've been practicing 6 hours. It doesn't, it's not the case. The case isn't that. The case is, how do you practice? What's your method in your practice? And what you're practicing, you know, a lot of people, they don't even speak the compositions or speak the ball or the badant, you know, which is a big part of our Shastriya or our Indian classical music. है ना? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਬਲਾ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜੀ ਆ ਬਜਾਓ, ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਲ ਸਿਖਾਓ, ਬੋਲਣਾ ਸਿਖਾਓ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿ how that works, you know, get them moving, you know. I think that's a big part and a lovely part of our Indian classical music, you know, which doesn't exist in other forms.
So when you play with other musicians, and has there ever been a incident where you've gone off doing your ball, your tabla ball and stuff, and they've seen that and have they questioned it? I mean, because I'm just watching you and I think, wow, it's just astonishing. So like I mean, you know, they're amazed by the actual lengths and the actual movements and the language of the instrument. You know, I think that's, you know, because it's very poetic. It's like you're singing the composition. Yes.
That's one thing. The other thing is the actual spaces and the tempos, and the cycles and the widths of the cycle. So if you notice, I was keeping the 16-beat cycle. We're also speaking the composition. You know. So yeah, they're fascinated by it, you know, they love it. They ask me a lot of questions about it. But I think, look, it's like this, you know, if you have studied Indian classical music and you go to watch Ustad Zakir Hussain perform, you're going to love it so much to somebody who hasn't studied it, because they'll still think he's amazing, but you will see all the in-betweens and the nuances.
Intricacies,
The intricacies, because you've studied it, or you're studying it, you know, or you listen to it. So that takes the listening level to another level as well. So, you know, does that make sense? So it's not like you just from there. It's about ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਸੁਣਿਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਸਮਝੇ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ, you know, and I think that's really key. I mean, I work with, you know, I do a lot of crossover work, Raj. You know, I've got like a kind of a beatboxing band. You know, the guitarist. It's called Karma Boy. We're releasing our music on the 18th. an EP on the 18th of October. It's been a long time coming, but I think we want to get it out. 4 brilliant tracks. So it's not like, they're nothing to do with Indian classical music. They're just 4 tunes, fresh tunes, original tracks that we've written. Mm-hmm. I work with Bollywood strings, so I play a lot of weddings, corporate events, with the quartet, the string quartet, and all of those string players. They all studied at the conservatoire where I teach. So that's a great thing. I've been super busy. I've done I think I must have played out 30, 40 weddings this year,
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I've been that busy with Bollywood strings. I mean, people can check it out online. It's, it's basically, like I said, a string quartet which play all the classic Bollywood tracks, and I play the rhythm side to it. So, something that I set up with a friend of mine, Emily, who studied at the conservatoire. So Julian Lloyd Webber was the main guy there.
Really? Wow.
And he introduced me to her. He said, look, there's a girl here who's doing a final year project, and a proper white middle class girl who wanted to do a Bollywood strings concert, That's and amazing. I did the rhythm side to it. And then she just after she graduated, she goes, well, I want to do it as a business. And I think, she's been super busy. She's done really, really well. So I do a bit of that. I work with my friend Aziz Ibrahim. I've got my own Tabla Jedi group, my band. I teach. I go to the conservatoire. I go various places. I'm working on a project called Partition of the Heart, which is happening at the MAC in Birmingham, which is talking about partition in 1947.
Wow.
I'm working on it with Simon Dougal. And so, yeah, I've had a really, really, so far, touch wood, all blessings. I've had a good, busy year, and long may it continue. I'm hoping, fingers crossed.
That's absolutely amazing. Earlier on, you were mentioning seeing Zakir
Ustad Zakir Hussain.
Yeah, Zakir Hussain. Sorry, I just had a bit of brain fog then. So yeah, I went to see him with Hans when he came down. This is about probably 20 years ago now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, they came and performed at the town hall.
Oh right, yeah. I wasn't there for that one, but I was so fortunate to play with Hansradji at the town hall for the 550th, I think it was.
Yeah.
In the town hall when my Guruji were there. So I spent a couple of days with them, and he was such a beautiful, beautiful man. Mere Guruji nu bahut pyar karte ne. And he would say, Dalbir ji, tode Guruji ne Punjab lut liya. And they khush rehndi se, and khush tabiyat, beautiful singer, beautiful human being, So so there are very few Punjabi artists who have real appreciation for not just Punjabi music, but Sufi music, for Indian classical music, for Drupad Dhamar, for Khayal singing, for Ghazal, for, Qawwali, all of these different genres. Do you understand? So, Raj, at the end, now, when I listen, if you listen to, some of the great singers, I mean, if you listen to the earlier recordings of Surinder Kaur Prakash Kaur, or you listen to the earlier recordings of Mahendra Kapoor, or Muhammad Rafi ji, Muhammad Rafi, Punjabi, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ Punjabi ਦੇ ਗਾਣੇ, Ghulam Ali Khan ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ Punjabi ਦੇ albums, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ Punjabi ਦੇ albums, all ਗਾਣਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, there was just something really, you couldn't replicate those songs today.
No.
There's a real authenticity in theirs, and just like Indian cinema, when you would go, and listen to a great soundtrack, a Yash Raj film or whatever. Anyway, you would see the real quality of music, and that's why those songs and today
are still
stand strong. They still stand. And they're it's just even with the Beatles tunes, even Oasis, they're coming back together now.
Yeah.
Their album 25 years ago. Still people are still listening to that music.
Phenomenal, yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just I think there's very few, but Hansradji is definitely one of them. Who's really kind of done that, bridged that. And I love what as well of some of the new gen are doing. I'm not really, I don't listen to Bhangra often, if I come across it. But obviously with the social media impact, with what's happening with Diljit Dosanjh, and, I mean, he's not just a great singer, he's also a brilliant songwriter and a great actor, so, these guys, they're kind of like people who come from theatres, real struggles, then and work on this. So, I think, it's a brilliant, and just to have also that crossover with Mr. Ed Sheeran, what does that say? I mean, you've got one of the biggest names, and even he knows, I mean, India is probably it's the second largest streaming nation on the planet after the USA. And it'll probably take over the USA. Yeah. So, that's a big market, in India and China and that end. So I think Ed Sheeran's doing a great job on that front as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think with India, it's quite, you can have a niche and it'll blow up.
Oh,
like, there's a rock scene there, there's a hip hop scene there, there's a jazz scene there, there's a blues scene there. It's just phenomenal, isn't it? India is.
It's crazy, man. It's such a big place, and the market, like you said, so big. India and Pakistan as well. I've toured both of the countries, and they've just been there's a real youth movement, happening there. And you're right, there's space and room for anybody and everybody to do what they want to do.
There's even a heavy metal scene there.
Yeah, there's a band called Bloodywood.
I was going to just mention them.
They've just performed at Download Festival last year, I think.
Okay,
and they're quite a band, man. They're
pretty cool, aren't they?
Slipknots. They're like Slipknots, man.
Have you ever listened to the lyrics and stuff?
I have heard their music. I have heard their music. Yeah, I have. I have. I think it's powerful, man. If you're into that heavy metal stuff, then that's your band definitely to check
I'm not
out.
into metal, but I really appreciate what they're doing. They've taken the genre somewhere else where it's never been, sort of thing.
Well, Raj, I could tell you, right, they can take a very, very Western genre and own it, and that's what the great thing is. Even with our instruments in the violin, it goes, there was a great South Indian violinist. His name was L. Subramaniamji, and he didn't play just one neck violin, he put two necks on it, So that's what our people would do. They're real innovators. They would take it to the next level. And I think it's amazing for people to see, because we don't get to see that now. So when I talk to people about instruments, even in schools, they don't see them. So it's good to expose them to it. And I'm hoping that that's the kind of work that you will do. You're exposing them to that, through your podcast and all of that. So I think that's healthy, man, and when I look online, and because I follow Indian classical musicians, I can see a lot of it happening, and it's really grown, not just the Bhangra industry's grown. I know Sukhshinder Shindaji very well. He's a
musician.
Yeah, he's a brilliant guy, brilliant musician. He's a student of Ajit Singh Matrashi ji. He learned tabla as well for many years. Yeah, appreciative of, they go to Indian classical concerts, and that's what I would say to youngsters who are in the Bhangra industry or even in Indian classical music. Go and see another genre, another band do what they do. You'll get to learn. Don't just think, I'm going to just go and see that one thing.
Hi guys, this is Raj Kaul. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the rest of my music, if you could go and check me out on Spotify, on Apple Music, and add my songs to your playlists if you like them. Thank you. Exactly. I think what happens sometimes, especially amongst the Bhangra crowd, the Bhangra scene, is that we become very, what's the word I'm looking for? Narrow-minded sometimes. So basically, if it's not folk, like a certain type of folk, like Kuldeep Manakji was one of the greatest singers of Punjab, but if it's not that kind of genre, they don't want to know. But actually, Punjabi music is so varied that it's there's so many avenues to it. It's
I mean, you're right, Raj, because Punjabi music comes from one thing, and that is the lyric.
Yes,
the lyric. So when you lose writers, when you lose great writers, or you're not using those great writers, those great gubbies that wrote those great songs, and then you had the great voice of Gurdas Manji or Sukhshinder Shindaji, as you said, Surjit Bindrakia ji, great singers, Sadi Punjab, to Balwinder Safri ji, great voice, even Shin, another great vocalist, in our Punjabi music industry, producers like B2, I know B2 as well, really well. All these people who are in the industry for many years, they will tell you that it comes down to the song. It comes down to that lyric. And I think that's key in Punjabi music, and there's not many people who use great songs. Everything's auto-tuned now,
No.
What's going on? And I just think to myself, you think the public are stupid. You think listeners are stupid in what you're doing, but another be following you, they have that as well. But, I'm not saying I like it, I don't like it. What I'm saying is that, our Punjabi music, the real essence in it is the lyric, is then the melody, and I think, and then the music on top of that, so there's all these layers, and I think that lacks a little bit sometimes, when I'm listening to it. For me, Bhangra music and Punjabi music is not chaklo chaklo.
Exactly.
Oh, hega raklo,
because there's ghazals. Yeah, there's ghazals, qawwalis, there's look at Muhammad Rafi ji, he sang some of the best Punjabi songs ever.
Of course.
It's so varied.
And the other thing is as well, it's Raja also, the Indian film industry really neglected Punjabi film industry for years.
Yes.
This is a fact, because they always thought, well, let's have a Punjabi in it, let him be a truck driver, let him drive it on GT roads. All these stereotypes would happen. And, and that wasn't really, and that took somebody, like let's say Diljit Dosanjh, to change that image, who can actually do an arty film or a dark movie or a film of that stature, that will sell and will have, a big following of. So I think, the perception had to change, and it has now. I don't watch Punjabi films, I hardly watch any new Indian films. I'll watch more of the series that are happening, and it's all intertwined now. It's all the characters. The lead character could be a Sardar, played by Saif Ali Khan,
Exactly,
Does that make sense? So I think it's brilliant, really fantastic now that we've all kind of, come to this place where, anybody can do a role rather than just being stereotyped in one particular way.
And it's the same with music. It's the same with music as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like anyone can do anything now. It's like I know artists which are non-Punjabi, but they're singing Punjabi music.
You're right, Raj. It happens in Indian classical music as well.
Exactly.
It's very much like not very many you'll hear so and so sing or core is performing at at the Sankat Mochan Festival or Saptak Festival. It's very close sometimes in those environments as well. Very difficult to get into them, so it happens in music a lot as well. I agree. You're right.
Yeah. So I won't keep you long now. We almost kept you an hour, by the way.
Cool. No worries, man. I've enjoyed it.
It's flown past. So what about your routine? Because you mentioned deliberate practice, and I'm one for this like massively, because before, when I was younger, right, I should practice But as I've grown older, I would think, no, I need to emphasize on what I'm practicing, as you said, not just do a scale.
Yes,
that's that's it. Actually, what am I doing? Is it where my weaknesses? I want to emphasize more on that side, just to finish off on.
Sure. And that's a really good question, actually, Raj. Because I said earlier, practice is not the amount of time you spend on it. Practice is a method. right?
Mm.
And for me, and we call it riyaz, you know, in our terms. But riyaz basically is, what are you hearing? Because there's a saying in classical music, they say, Adha sunna, adha seekhna hota hai.
Mm.
If you're a good listener, you're a great learner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the first thing. Who are you listening to? Who, you know, what kind of music do you listen to? The other thing is, when you're practicing, it doesn't matter, like, say you could spend half an hour practicing. So you could be doing your alankar, you know, your dance, or, you know, it could be a chud kitan, it could be a sargam, you know, it could be aro, avro, you know, ascending, descending.
Yeah.
It could be scale, you know, kind of changes, could be key changes.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things that happen. I mean, first of all, what I would say is that if you're a vocalist, right, try not to sing with an instrument. Try and sing to something like a drone, which is the tanpura.
That's what I do.
Okay, so there you go then.
Yeah, my vocal teacher doesn't allow me to sing with the harmonium.
There you go then.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, because you are then hearing if your note fluctuates.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the harmonium will cover that. It will kind of, you know,
100%.
it will fog it a bit, right? So, you know, and even though I'm not saying don't sing with the harmonium, I'm talking about practice. So when you do your riyaz, so if Guruji share a pattern with me, and they say to me, okay, this is your pattern, this is your tukra, you know, then they taught me it. I've learned it, right? But what did I do? Do I just sit on it? No, that's not it. I make another 2, 3, 4, 5 from that. I multiply it. So riyaz is a process where you're not just practicing ostinato, the pattern, constantly. Okay, riyaz is also your creative process as well, where you will learn and see different combinations in your alankar, in your sargam. Okay, and you can work those formats. So don't always just think, what my teacher's given me, that's all I should do. My Guruji never ever taught me like that. My Guruji would say, do this and see what you can do with it. That's a different approach, you know, to it. So I think that's really been key for me, you know, and keeping things fresh. If I said to you, well, I learned this composition 25 years ago, or you told me I learned this bandish or this rag in this dal, and I learned it 25 years ago, but that's all he done for 25 years. There's not been any tabdili in it, no progression in it. Then you know, for me, the progression is, once you know what that rag is, even if it's rag Yaman or rag Shiri or rag Malkons or whichever rag or whichever tal it is, what have you done with it? That's my kind of real push on students. Say, you know, you've got this amazing super brain, you know, you can, you know, and it's got a great database, you know, music can help you connect that stuff. And you can make so much out of that. And that's what I do. So if I learn a composition, I'll then try and see, what else can I make out of that? Let me see other combinations. Let me see if I can start that tukra from the second beat, the third one, the fifth. You know, why not? It doesn't always have to start on the first one. So that's what I think it should be. It shouldn't be that this is now set in stone. Indian classical music could open up, or our music can really open up into different territories, man.
It's very interesting, because like I've had a number of teachers, right? And and it's very, very interesting what you're saying there, because my first teachers, they just gave me a book, follow this strictly. That was it. There was no it's only my last teacher, who I'm with now. He said exactly the same as you. But Rod, you got to use your own creativity. You can't just do this, express yourself. And a lot of the time, I'm a Punjabi singer, so my previous teachers, God bless them, I'm not knocking them, because they were great. They taught me a lot. Like, I learned harmonium off my previous teacher, but what it was, they would tell me, say, oh, you know, calm your voice down. It wasn't my natural voice. They try to make me put a voice on which was fitting into their genre of music.
Yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, do you understand? But only my last thing. Sorry?
You just said it. You just said it's not your natural voice. So when your teacher makes you sing naturally, and that creative process as well, Raj, will happen the more you. So that base is really important. The foundation is important. You know, that you know what your sa is, or you can, you know, you can match the note. You know, whichever one. But it's not just that. Then you're right. You know, when a lot of, I mean, I've been very fortunate, and like you are as well, that, you know, to have a very good teacher, a great guru or ustad or a mentor is really key, man. You know, because that is the inspiration. You know, that is really where you're getting your source from. And I think there'll be many times where you'll feel like, you know, but that it's because it's not an easy relationship to manage. You know, it's not like you're at university for 4 years and you're not going to see the tutor again. You know, it's not like that. You know, it's a very prolonged relationship. It's a
lifelong thing, isn't it?
It's a lifelong process, you know. And my Guruji would always say, you know, wherever you can go and learn. There's no shortages. You know, some teachers might say, no, you only learn here. Don't go over there. You know, they've never ever thought of it of their teaching and learning like that. They just say, go and learn, go and find out about it. You know, kuch le lo, kuch de den tonu. You know what I mean? That kind of, I love that about him. You know,
he sounds brilliant. Lovely. He sounds lovely.
My Guruji is one of the greatest teachers on the planet. And for me, the greatest teacher, a real inspiration for me. You know, and people who know my Guruji will definitely agree to it. He's his sense of humor. He's a practitioner. He's very witty, and you know, he's a powerhouse. He's a lion, you know, amongst men. He's an amazing musician. You know, worldwide. You know, probably one of the highest viewed tabla players in the world as well. You know, so I'm really lucky. You know, when you have that, and I think first of all, find a good teacher. You know, and I would also say as well that, you know, enjoy your learning, you know, enjoy it. If once you stop enjoying it, then there's nothing in it. You're not going to get anything out of it.
I mean, what I found is that's another part of learning is the enjoyment part, because I've had teachers, as I say, who were very strict. Oh, what are you doing? This and that. You get it wrong, and I felt scared. To actually do anything. Then I was like, am I going to get it wrong? I'm going to get told off. And it knocks your confidence.
Yes, it can. Look, you know, it can be a very intimidating, you know. I've been in certain scenarios with musicians who know their thing. You know, they know what you're speaking, keeping the tal. They'll tell you you're in or out. I know that, but I think music is about uplift, isn't it, Raj? You know, you want to be around positivity. Music's a beautiful thing, you know. It helps people's mental health. You know, it's good for your mental well-being. So I'm not for that, to have, you know, that negativity in mind. You know, not to have that. And I think, you know, the quicker you squash that, the better it is for you to progress in what you want to do.
I've had to leave those teachers eventually. Like, interestingly, I'm learning piano at the moment, and my piano teacher at the moment, she actually teaches kids. So she's only got 2 adult students. One's myself and one's another lady. Right. She's probably the best teacher I've probably ever had. Reason why? She teaches me like I'm a 5-year-old.
She
goes, hey, sweetie, no, don't do this. It's like, and I think you can view it as patronizing, but it's not. It's actually endearing, and I've learned more from her. I've only been learning for a month or 2 than I ever. Like, my progress has been so fast because the way she's again, it's a lot.
It's that relationship as well, isn't it? It's that relationship, you know, and what level that relationship happens at. So once you found that, you know, that middle ground, then you're just like super glue. Then nothing can stop you. I think that's key. I think it's key to having a good teacher, somebody you're comfortable with. You know, I've been teaching for 25 years. You know, in the music service, I teach in mainstream schools. You know, we've got tabla classes happening at the CBSO for the first time in its history of 130 years. Never has a tabla been in the CBSO, a classic, you know, City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. So, you know, I've been working 20 odd years, man, to get all this stuff in there. And I'm super proud that we can do that now. Now we need the students. Now we need people to be able to come out there and go, actually, I can go work with an orchestra as well. I can be a part of an ensemble. I can be in a band as well, you know. I don't have to be like, oh, I've got to find somebody. I can go and be a part of a group, because there is a great thing that comes from that. There's a great camaraderie, you know, when you're in when you're in a band. I love being in bands because I have a best time when I'm on tour, you know, best time, you know, just have a great amount of laugh, get to see. That's another thing as well about being a musician, as you'll know, Raj, is you get to meet some amazing people, and you also get to travel around the world, you know. There's nothing more beautiful than that. So I just think that's keep it positive and keep it really, you know, there's always going to be knockbacks. Now that's life, you know, but you've got to be resilient as well and know that there might be a reason for that these things happen, and you approach it another way. You know, you can go in many different ways, you know, so many different, you know, when you talk about Punjabi music's really wide.
Exactly.
You know, when you think about it, you know, in Pakistan, they'll have their own Punjabi forms of music. You know, in Sindh, they'll have their own. In Himachal Pradesh, they'll have their own. You know, Haryana, they'll have their own. So, you know, there's such a big place, Punjab is, where Punjabi music originates from. You know, and then Punjab Gharana as well in Indian classical music. You know, it's the oldest Gharana in Indian classical music in Tabla. You know, so it's very rich, you know, and we could talk for hours about it, you know, and go into real depths about musicians and artists that you're a fan of, or you listen to, you know. It's just you know, when every time I'm talking about music, I've always got so much to say. I just think I'm gonna have to.
It comes across.
I'm gonna have to write it all down in a book or a podcast, or like one of those audio books.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna finish off, bro.
Sure.
Dal, my question to any guest who comes on here: what advice would you give? Because the whole thing of the podcast is in the pursuit of musical excellence. So what advice would you give to me, to the audience, to listeners, how to pursue musical excellence? That's the question. You've already mentioned a lot of it, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Raj, I would say parents have a big role in this as well, because, you know, supportive parents, you know, who bring their children to, or students or kids to, music classes. I've seen this, you know, there's a big sacrifice from parents. I would encourage parents to encourage their kids to learn music, because music's not just a hobby. Music is a very, very dignified profession, right? That's firstly, I would say that. The other advice I would say is, don't just learn an instrument and not get credited for it. Get accreditation for it. Go and find out about courses. Go and learn about, you know, music technology, right? Go and enroll and find out about these courses that are available, you know. So I would suggest that, you know, to go into these places and spaces. Thirdly, I also would say that whatever you do, you know, do it with your heart. It's not an easy journey always, you know. It's there's gonna be some, in the music business, is a very difficult business to earn a living from, and fortunately, you know, I can do that, and you know, but nothing's for certain. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Everything is in the unknown. So you know, I would just say, you know, be a learner. If you want to really delve into and find that musical excellence, right? You know, forget the mastery, you know, just become a great learner, be the best learner you can be, and keep learning, you know, wherever you go, soak it up like a sponge, go and do that, and then apply it, you know. If you want to then use it in your own way, by all means do that. That's what my advice would be, you know, and love what you do, you know. It's a great privilege and honor to be able to do what we do. So, you know, don't take it as like just a little thing on the side, you know, really grasp it and go for it. And now I would say, you know, the young youth, they're savvy, you know, they know what's happening around them. They're much more clued up. So, and I think they're more compassionate as well, you know, from when we were growing up and getting, you know, knockbacks from, you know, for whatever reason. But yeah, so that would be my advice. 100%.
Yeah.
No matter what instrument, doesn't matter. Don't just do, you know, because I want you to play Indian classical music. Whatever instrument you want to play, you know, do that. You know, give it your, and give it time. Be patient. You know, don't think, oh, I haven't learned it, I'm bored of it now, or, you know, give it time. You have to establish that relationship with a good teacher. It takes time.
Absolutely.
I've been with my teacher for 32 years. You know, that's a long journey, you know, that I've been with him and he's been with me. So, you know, when you fulfill those long journeys, and with bands as well, look at the big bands. Look at bands like U2, the Rolling Stones, Oasis, you know, together after 20 years. Do you know what I mean? So there's a real relationship that you've got to build as well, and be proud of it. Speak about it in your music school as well. Go to the music teacher, go and tell her or him, I play the tabla, I play the harmonium, I sing, I want to do something here, can you help me? You know, be vocal about it. Don't just sit on your ass and think somebody's going to come and help you. Get off it and go there and go and find out what's available to you. You know, I'm doing tabla classes on a Saturday morning. They're free classes, Raj. You don't even need an instrument.
Yeah.
You get me? Just turn up. Just turn up. If you want to do it, don't have any excuses. Oh, no, Sadda Mundana, Taekwondo Jandaya. You know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, then they're complaining about it as well, you know? Oh, Gio di latte tuttegi. You know, you know, that's what's gonna happen. So, you know, just give, you know, support support them, support these places. You know, they need you, so come out and support it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so now we'll come to the end of the podcast. I do want to say something about you. Just from meeting, you can tell what a great teacher you are, because I've learned so much just in this
bless you
from you.
Right, thank you.
Honestly, that comes across. Your passion comes across. Your enthusiasm comes across about music. You can tell. And
thank you.
As you said, you've got a great teacher, and someone else is going to be honored to have you as their great teacher, because I can see that already.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Also, Ryan, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Do you want to give the audience your socials and where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on X, on Twitter as Tabla Jedi. So that's Tabla Jedi is basically a movement of tabla players, you know, so my students, my friends, anybody's associated with it. And that's where you can find me. Instagram's probably the more popular one. I'm not too active on Facebook, but Instagram, definitely can reach me on that, or on Twitter. And my EP's releasing. All the dates are on the 18th of October, which is called Light, with my band Karma Boy. That's coming out. I'm excited about that. That'll be available on all media platforms, music platforms. I'm doing a show in Birmingham, if anybody's around the Midlands, called Partition of the Heart. That's on the 30th and 31st. I think the 30th is sold out. 31st, Thursday, 7:30, 31st of October. So I'll be there. And come and say hello. So yeah, thanks for having me. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. So guys, that was Del, aka Tabla Jedi. He's got a big smile on his face for those who are listening. So once again, if you could make sure you give him a follow and leave a review for the podcast, and just leave any comments on the post, or if you see it. So once again, thank you so much for listening. So I'm going to stop and just have a little chat with Del. God bless you all.